In an explosive turn of events, tensions rise between Canada and the United States as President Trump's trade war escalates dramatically. Just recently, a new mandate from the White House has doubled tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, launching them to an astonishing 50%. The Canadian leadership is adamant, we are not for sale, and we refuse to be treated as the 51st state. Instead, they hope for a mutually beneficial business relationship. Yet, Trump's additional 25% tariff on these essential materials has thrown Canada into chaos, igniting controversy and unrest. Can we really blame President Trump for the plunging, unpredictable economy? As major American corporations plummet in value, the repercussions of this trade war are evident everywhere. The president nonchalantly told a Walmart executive to simply absorb those costs, a statement that rings hollow in light of the suffering in Canada. Imagine a nation that has long been a key supplier of energy, steel, and aluminum to its southern neighbor suddenly facing crippling tariffs. Is it any wonder that Canada is fuming? With factories shuttering and unemployment on the rise, the Canadian populace is infuriated. They're on the brink of a significant backlash. And now, in a bold move, Ontario's premier has proclaimed, "We are going to use every power we have to fight back." But what does this mean? Could Canada potentially cut off electricity supplies to the US? What ignited this turmoil? Let's peel back the layers. Trump's aggressive tariffs are wreaking havoc across Canada, crippling exports and inflating the trade deficit to historic levels. Ottawa is at a crossroads, pondering their next steps. Many may dismiss this as dry political strategy, but Premier Ford's fury signals that something monumental is brewing beneath the surface. The Premier's fiery declaration presents a crisis. We're ready to wield our leverage. Could we be witnessing the early stages of a fierce economic retaliation? The Canadian media suggests this is no empty threat, it's a well-thought-out strategy. If they follow through, the energy costs in northern U.S. states could skyrocket, leading to disrupted supply chains. Canada has already placed certain counter-tariffs on U.S. goods, but as tensions escalate, these measures may intensify. What will happen when Ontario and Quebec decide to halt their electricity exports? Such a power move could send shockwaves down south, igniting chaos in states like Minnesota and New York. Influential figures, like economist Mark Carney, champion ramping up Canadian production to lessen dependency on the U.S. market. Yet the question looms, could this fracture the already damaged Canada-U.S. relations even further? With Ontario recently imposing a 25% surcharge on electricity exported to American homes, the repercussions are dire. That could mean an additional $100 on the average electricity bill for families in Minnesota and neighboring states. A staggering revenue stream for the province could be used to offset costs for Ontarians, but at what expense? Could this tit-for-tat strategy lead to an economic meltdown for both countries? And why should the American public bear the brunt of this turmoil initiated by Trump's policies? The stakes are higher than ever as Canada seeks to redefine its economic independence. But can it truly break free from reliance on the American market? The tight-knit economic fabric between the two nations means any alteration sends tremors through the entire system. Are we staring down the barrel of a new trade war, one that could redefine North America's economic landscape? What lies ahead for both Canada and the U.S. if these tariffs continue to spiral out of control? The future remains uncertain as the intense saga of retaliation unfolds. Buckle up, the true battle has only just begun. In the face of escalating economic tensions, Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford, has declared, "We're going to land every piece we've got." That bold proclamation hints at a brewing storm between Canada and the United States. But what does it truly mean? Could Ontario leverage its power supply to turn the tide on trade deficits? The Canadian media suggests this isn't mere bluster, it's a carefully crafted strategy. As energy prices in northern states hang in the balance, there's a looming question: how will America weather the consequences of these policies? As Ford speaks of possible retaliation, including counter-tariffs and an increase in electricity costs exported to the U.S., the stakes become clearer. Ontario and Quebec powerhouses are integral to U.S. electricity imports, and should they cut off the tap, the potential chaos could be devastating. Industry leaders like Mark Carney argue that ramping up domestic production can fortify Canada's position, making the dependence on the U.S. market less of a vulnerability. But has the damage already been done? The harsh reality is that US-Canada relations are fraying. Earlier moves saw Ontario impose a 25% surcharge on electricity for US states like Minnesota and New York, a direct reaction to President Trump's tariffs on Canadian exports. Ford expressed sympathy for American citizens, insisting that they did not initiate this trade war. He places the blame squarely on Trump's shoulders. This surcharge alone threatens to increase Americans' electricity bills by around $100 a month, bringing in an estimated $300,000 to $400,000 daily for the Ontario government. What will happen next as the two countries navigate this precarious relationship? Will Ontario's aggressive stance shift the balance of power, or are both sides locked in a risky game that will leave them with severe losses? As we peel back the complexities of this situation, one thing becomes certain: the struggle for economic supremacy is just heating up, and the world is watching closely. In the heart of a brewing conflict, Canada faces a storm triggered by President Trump's aggressive trade policies. Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford, declares the province will harness newfound revenue from a controversial surcharge on power sold to the U.S. This move, which will add around $100 to the average American electricity bill, aims to generate $300,000 to $400,000 daily for Ontario's treasury. As the stakes rise, the Premier boldly asserts, "We need to build on our strengths, not our weaknesses," signaling a shift in negotiation strategy. But the tension runs deeper. Ford has taken drastic measures, banning American alcohol from shelves and restricting U.S. companies from government contracts. The initial $30 billion in retaliatory tariffs by the federal government looms large as well. With Trump's legacy of tariffs hanging in the air, the U.S. government grapples with a looming question: can they afford to lose Canada? Ford's assertive posture plants the seed for a potential ripple effect in trade, affecting not just steel, but also energy and political dynamics. Amid these developments, uncertainty lingers. Who truly stands to gain or lose in this escalating saga? In Canada, business leaders from the steel and aluminum sectors sound the alarm, asserting they cannot compete under the weight of such tariffs. This urgency translates into mounting pressure on the Ontario government, highlighting regional frustration amid a typically unified front. As we peel back the layers, the Ontario government finds itself torn between domestic pressure and international relations. Will the strategy of retaliating against the U.S. strengthen Canada's political landscape, or fracture it further? The implications of Ford's vigorous approach could reshape not only Ontario's future but also that of Canada itself. Can Canada rise from the ashes of this trade war, or will it ignite a greater crisis? As Canada prepares to navigate the tumultuous waters of trade negotiations, the real question looms: is it possible to forge a path that benefits both sides, or are they headed for a collision? What bold steps will unfold next in this high-stakes drama? The escalating trade tensions between Canada and the United States have reached a boiling point. In response to the staggering 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum imposed by the U.S., Canadian businesses are sounding the alarm. They argue it's impossible to compete under such conditions, leading to mounting pressure on the Canadian government to retaliate decisively. The focus has shifted toward Ontario, where the government recognizes that the province's economy, heavily reliant on manufacturing, is in jeopardy. Ontario's leadership is adopting a hardline approach, raising alarming questions about the stability of Canada's political landscape. While the federal government may be navigating cautiously, Ontario's stance indicates a fracturing consensus that could lead to a more dynamic, if contentious, negotiation style with the U.S. The brash declarations from Ontario's Premier regarding potential power cuts send ripples of concern through American northern states, which rely on Canadian electricity. Imagine the prices skyrocketing and the possibility of blackouts looming over cities that thought themselves secure. What would happen then? But is Ontario ready to wield this energy weapon? They stand to gain significant revenue from electricity exports, ensuring that any retaliatory action is not only feasible but advantageous. The dependent relationship between Canada and the northern U.S. states raises critical questions. Just how reliant are they on electricity from their northern neighbor? As Ontario positions itself for a potentially harsh stance against U.S. tariffs, anxiety flourishes among the American populace. Could this lead to increased costs? Canada's countermeasures are unfolding. While additional tariffs on certain American agricultural products are already in motion, ranging from 10% to 25%, they fall short of matching the severity of U.S. tariffs. Despite these strategies, Canadian retaliatory efforts lack the scale and intensity of U.S. measures, which makes navigating these turbulent waters particularly challenging. In a bid to push back against the tariff storm that has defined the recent landscape, Canada might feel like David fighting Goliath. Their response may include modest tariffs on machinery and equipment but remains significantly overshadowed by the U.S.'s aggressive tactics. Yet, Ontario's strategic moves could amplify Canada's negotiating leverage over time, redefining their relationship with the USA in unprecedented ways. The stakes have never been higher, as the balance of trade and political power hangs in the balance. What's next? The unfolding narrative of trade wars is far from over, and the world is watching closely. The ongoing tension between the United States and Canada has reached a critical point. In the backdrop of a fierce trade conflict, Ontario has strategically decided to wield an unexpected weapon: electricity. As Canada grapples with the repercussions of substantial tariffs imposed by the U.S., the stakes have never been higher for both nations. The story unfolds with powerful imagery of smoke-filled factories and distant echoing hammers as communities grapple with dwindling job opportunities. The relationship between these two countries runs deep, particularly in the energy sector, where their fates intertwine. As the Premier of Ontario boldly declares, "We'll pull the plug if we have to," the implications of such a statement ignite both fear and intrigue. Could shutting off electricity exports to the U.S. plunge northern states into chaos? Expand your understanding of this complex terrain where every change sparks ripples through the supply chain. Parts of a car might cross the border multiple times. A simple bolt isn't so simple when it has traveled internationally. This intricate web of trade hangs precariously as both nations struggle with their dependence on one another. The trade deficit is increasing, frustrating Canadian producers who feel the weight of the crippling tariffs. In this dance of retaliation, Ontario is not just reacting, it's recalibrating its strategy. Leading figures like Mark Carney push for dramatic economic restructuring. Their focus is clear: promote local production, ramp up investment in infrastructure, and seek new avenues for trade beyond U.S. borders. With plans for rail networks and alternative energy projects in the works, Canada is determined to lift its economic fortunes from the shadow of its much larger neighbor. Yet with each threat to cut off electricity exports, there lies a paradox. The impact of these changes reverberates through the economies on both sides. How could these strategies potentially reshape the landscape of North American trade? As emotions run high and strategies clash, we find ourselves questioning the very fabric of this vital relationship. Will the tides of trade turn in favor of one nation over the other? In this volatile climate, where strong words have resonated too finely, the battle for economic superiority continues. Each decision, each tariff, each retaliatory measure adds layers to an already complex relationship, compelling us to wonder, what does the future truly hold for U.S.-Canada relations? The answers await as we delve deeper into the heart of the matter. As tensions escalate in the ongoing trade conflict between Canada and the United States, Canada is plotting a bold strategy to pivot away from dependence on its southern neighbor. With tariffs impacting steel and aluminum still causing waves, the spotlight is shifting to a broader landscape of economic interdependence fueled by energy demands and vital exports. Canada isn't just focused on retaliating, it's crafting a blueprint for the future, deploying extensive projects that shift reliance away from the U.S. This transformation is especially crucial as the impact of tariffs isn't confined to just metal products but extends into a vast web of industries. The intricate interplay of trade means that any disruption can result in chaos not just for one country, but both. What does this mean for U.S.-Canada relations? Canadian leaders are rallying together, emphasizing their strength and options. We're ready to play hardball, they say. They're keeping strategies close to their chest, considering everything from cutting electric supplies to enhancing domestic production capabilities. The question pulsating through the U.S. is stark: are these tariffs genuinely serving American interests, or are they burdening everyday citizens? The U.S., while wrestling with its trade policies, must confront a disconcerting reality: could it be too reliant on its northern ally? Meanwhile, Canada is putting forth a potent question of its own: will it follow through on its threats to cut off electricity supplies? Or are these declarations merely an artful maneuver in a high-stakes chess game? Crucial figures like Mark Carney, once at the helm of major financial institutions, are stepping into the limelight with a vision, a set of ambitious projects intended to forge a new path for Canada. They aim to secure markets beyond the U.S. shores, possibly reshaping the economic landscape in ways we cannot yet predict. But as the stakes rise, both nations remain in a precarious balance, knowledge of the consequences of missteps blending with hope for a more stable future. This scenario beckons us to rethink the narrative of dependency. With both nations holding cards marked with potential losses, the crucial question remains, who will win or lose as this trade saga unfolds? The very foundation of their economic partnership is at risk. The clock is ticking. With every action taken, the repercussions resonate far and wide. Will Canada boldly sever ties, propelling itself into a new era of independence? Or will it find a way to navigate these choppy waters, keeping the lights on for both countries? The tension between retaliatory plans and the intricacies of trade relations leaves everyone wondering what's next in this unfolding drama.